On the night of October 30th, 2017, a frantic 911 call came in from a home in Knoxville, Tennessee. The caller, a young woman named Jennifer, was in hysterics. She told the dispatcher she had just arrived home to find both her parents, Joel and Lisa Guy, brutally murdered. The scene she described was so horrific that it sent a chill down the spine of even the most seasoned emergency responders. When police arrived at the address on Golden View Lane, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror, a house that would later be described as a house of horrors. The evidence was scattered, the bodies dismembered, and a chemical smell hung in the air. It was a gruesome puzzle, and right in the middle of it was the daughter who made the call. But as investigators started to piece together the events of that Thanksgiving weekend, they began to suspect that Jennifer, the grieving daughter, might know far more than she was letting on. Today, we're diving deep into the chilling case of Joel and Lisa Guy, and the dark secrets that led to their tragic end at the hands of their own son. Joel and Lisa Guy seemed to have a picture-perfect life. Joel was a pipeline engineering designer, and Lisa worked in human resources. They had lived in their Knoxville home for years and were looking forward to a comfortable retirement. They had 3 daughters and 1 son, Joel Michael Guy Jr., while their daughters were independent and had started their own lives. Joel Jr., at 28 years old, was still heavily reliant on his parents. He had been a student at Louisiana State University for 9 years, supposedly studying to become a plastic surgeon, but he had never completed his degree. For nearly a decade, his parents had been funding his life in Baton Rouge, paying his rent, his bills, and his tuition. They had poured their life savings into supporting their son's seemingly endless education. But in late 2016, Joel and Lisa made a life-altering decision. They were ready to retire. They had sold their house and were planning to move into Joel Sr.'s deceased mother's home to save money. And with retirement came a difficult conversation they needed to have with their son. They were cutting him off financially. This was the bombshell they planned to drop during their Thanksgiving gathering. Thanksgiving of 2016 was supposed to be a final family get-together in the home they had known for so long. Joel Sr. and Lisa hosted their 3 daughters and their son, Joel Jr., who had driven up from Baton Rouge. By all accounts, the holiday was pleasant. The family shared meals, laughed, and reminisced. There was no sign of the storm that was brewing. On Friday, the daughters left to return to their own homes, leaving Joel Jr. alone with his parents. This was when Joel Sr. and Lisa planned to tell their son that the financial support was coming to an end. They had supported him for years, and now it was time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. They hoped he would understand. They had no idea that this conversation would seal their fate. The next few days were quiet. Lisa's co-workers became concerned when she didn't show up for work on Monday. After repeated, unanswered calls, her boss contacted the police and requested a welfare check. And that's when the horrifying discovery was made. When officers forced their way into the Guy family home, they were confronted by a scene that would haunt them forever. The thermostat was cranked up to 90 degrees, an attempt to accelerate decomposition and mask the smell. But the smell of chemicals was overpowering. In the upstairs guest room, they found Lisa's head, boiled in a stock pot on the stove. Other body parts were found in 2 large blue plastic containers, dissolving in a corrosive acid. A similar scene was found in Joel Sr.'s exercise room. The crime scene was a meticulous, calculated effort to dispose of the bodies. Investigators found knives, a meat grinder, and cleaning supplies. And throughout the house, there were grocery receipts for the very items used in the dismemberment and disposal, drain cleaner, hydrogen peroxide, and plastic containers. All of them purchased by Joel Guy Jr. in the days leading up to the murders. It was clear this was not a crime of passion. This was a premeditated act of extreme violence. The evidence against Joel Guy Jr. was overwhelming. As investigators searched the home, they discovered a backpack in his guest room. Inside, they found a notebook, a detailed, 5-page log of his horrifying plan. It was a to-do list for murder. The notes detailed everything from what kind of knife to use to how to dispose of the bodies. It included chilling entries like "get killing knives," "kill him with knife," and "flush chunks down toilet." It also laid out his motive with cold, hard clarity. The notebook mentioned life insurance, specifically a $500,000 policy on Joel Sr., with Joel Jr. as the beneficiary. The plan was simple and brutal: kill his parents, dismember their bodies to make them disappear, and then collect the insurance money to continue his life without financial worrying. He had meticulously planned every step, even noting to turn up the heat, to speed up the process, and to set up a false crime scene to throw off police. But he made crucial mistakes. In his rush, he left behind the receipts, the notebook, and a scene so horrific it pointed directly to him. While processing the crime scene, investigators noticed something odd. Joel Guy Jr. had sustained cuts and scratches on his hands. During the initial police interviews, he claimed these were from his dog, but the evidence told a different story. It was believed that Joel Sr., a strong man, fought back fiercely against his son's attack. The struggle was violent, leaving Joel Jr. with injuries that he couldn't explain away. He attacked his father first, stabbing him at least 42 times. When his mother, Lisa, heard the commotion and came running, he attacked her as well, stabbing her 31 times. After the murders, he spent the entire weekend in the house with his parents' remains, methodically carrying out the dismemberment plan from his notebook. He went out shopping for supplies, returning to the house to continue his gruesome work. He even texted his mother's phone after she was already gone, trying to create an alibi. On Sunday, he drove back to Baton Rouge, leaving the house of horrors behind, believing he had committed the perfect crime. He was wrong. Police tracked his movements through his cell phone pings and financial records. He was arrested just a few days later outside his apartment in Baton Rouge. Without incident, the evidence was irrefutable. The notebook, the receipts, the DNA, and the sheer brutality of the crime painted a clear picture of a cold, calculating killer motivated by greed. He had lived off his parents his entire adult life, and when faced with the prospect of having to support himself, he chose murder instead. His own sisters testified against him, describing him as strange and distant, someone who rarely showed emotion. They revealed that he never worked a day in his life, and that his parents' generosity was what enabled his prolonged adolescence. The trial was swift. In just a few days, the jury heard the harrowing details of the case. They saw the crime scene photos, they heard the testimony, and they read the chilling words from his own murder checklist. In October 2020, nearly 3 years after the murders, Joel Guy Jr. was found guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, felony murder, and abuse of a corpse. The jury deliberated for just a short time. The evidence was simply too mountainous to ignore. He was sentenced to consecutive life sentences, ensuring he will never walk free again. During his sentencing, he showed no emotion, no remorse for his horrific actions. He sat silently as the judge condemned his crimes, calling them the most heinous, the most violent, the most reprehensible he had ever seen. The case of Joel and Lisa Guy is a tragic reminder of how entitlement and greed can fester into unspeakable evil. They were loving parents who did everything they could for their son, and in the end, their generosity was repaid with the ultimate betrayal. It is a story that leaves us with a profound sense of loss and a chilling question: how can a child turn against the very people who gave them life in such a monstrous way? The community of Knoxville was left shaken, and the Guy family was shattered forever. The remaining family members were left to grapple with the devastating reality that their brother was responsible for the deaths of their parents. The house on Golden View Lane, once a symbol of a happy family life, became a monument to a terrible tragedy and was eventually torn down. This case serves as a dark and disturbing exploration of family dynamics, financial dependence, and the terrifying potential that can lie dormant behind a seemingly normal facade. It is a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked entitlement and the horrific consequences that can unfold when a person's greed completely eclipses their humanity. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the case of Joel Guy Jr. It's a difficult story to tell, but it's important that we remember the victims, Joel and Lisa Guy. If you found this analysis insightful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more true crime breakdowns. Stay safe out there.